Wisdom and knowledge starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm Mark. He's Gordon in Ontario, and this is Wisdom and Knowledge 5. We bring on Jason Christoff to talk about controlling the masses. Gordon, start this out.
Well, as it says in your little clip at the bottom, self-sabotage coach. And I think this is a key area. And I think a lot of us know a little bit about it and how we tend to undermine our own success. I've heard it equated to you have a furnace, you have the air conditioner. And when things get going too good, we turn on, when things are heating up and going really well in our lives, we turn on the air conditioner because we're not comfortable. Even though it's lovely, we're not comfortable. And we start engaging in subconscious behaviors that undermine our own success. And I'd love to hear you talk about what being a self-sabotage coach means and expand on my short little blurb of a definition.
Well, the great news, Gordon, is to describe it that it's your fault or it's you doing it. It's not you doing it. That's the big eureka moment. That's why I went into self-sabotage coaching. I used to be a very high-end nutrition and exercise coach, graduating from the Czech Institute in California under Paul Chek. And I found what you just described. You described what I dealt with on a regular basis. The average person appeared terrified to become better, even though they'd hire me and give me lots of money to help them lose weight or help them achieve a certain goal. Let's say the goal was 50-pound weight loss, which is pretty common today, by the way the world is toxic. The body does increase its water retention in the face of toxins and poisons. So 50 pounds is not unheard of. And when the person would lose 10, and I did find 10 was the mark that would scare them, this double-digit mark on the way to their goal, they would scurry back. And this is all based on a part of the mind that's internal to us. We have this subconscious mind pathway. Like you mentioned, subconscious behavior, right? Like it comes out of nowhere. So subconscious behavior is sort of the area as well that controls our heartbeat. It controls a cut healing, a woman's menstrual cycle. These are things you have no control over. You know that. What you probably don't know is that your behavior falls in that category. That's the big difference there. Is the average person knows, the female will know, I don't control my menstrual cycle. It comes and goes based on its, basically a 28-day cycle, but I couldn't stop it if I wanted to. The average person believes their behavior is completely within their control. And all psychologists know that's not the case, and they're not really allowed to share it with the public because the people who rule us know how to program our subconscious mind, and its function is so simple. It loves us. Like it's the greatest love story ever told. This part of the brain loves us, wants us to be safe and secure, and it has a very important operation by which it accomplishes that safety. It looks out into your environment and it collects all the data that you live in, all the environmental stimuli, puts it on a big list, and then it analyzes it for repetitive content. Very simple. What's the most repetitive phrases in your environment? What are the most repetitive ideas in your environment? What are the most repetitive behaviors? Now, the reason your subconscious mind does that, again, is for safety, but the reason that list of repetitive content relates to safety is it's going to make you act it out. It makes you act it out and adopt it as your own because it assumes that the most repetitive messaging from your environment reflects what the bigger herd is saying, thinking, or doing. And its safety protocol is about knowing that if you do say and think what the bigger herd is saying, doing, and thinking, you're probably going to be brought into the herd. The repetitive content in this high frequency represents that it's a bigger group engaging in this behavior, and you're always safer in bigger groups. This is completely automatic, outside your control. I'll give you a prime example for people who don't understand how this works. In 2001, there was a movie called Gone in 60 Seconds with Angelina Jolie and Nicolas Cage. It was a movie about car theft, and the plot was very simple. You had a thug in the neighborhood that was going to kill Nicolas Cage's brother unless Nicolas Cage, a very experienced car thief but retired, unless Nicolas Cage came out of retirement, the thug was going to kill Nicolas Cage's brother. And the thug said, these are the 100 cars that you have to steal, and you have 24 hours. So there was a lot of repetitive car theft images seeping into the brains of the movie watcher. And if you ask any psychologists as well, is that this part of the brain doesn't know the difference between real life, imagined thought, and screen time. So any psychologist will tell you, as the viewers in the cinema were sitting watching Gone in 60 Seconds, and there's particular aspects of watching a movie that makes this copying and mimicking and emulating and mirroring behavior upregulate. So it makes it even worse. But the people in the theater would not know on a psychological basis, on a neurological basis, that this was fake. And you would know this as well, because in a movie, it's not unheard of for you to jump or have a faster heart rate, or your palms start sweating. You're having physiological responses to something that's fake. And this documentation process of the most repetitive content, so that you can mimic it in an attempt to bond with the bigger herd, is automatic. And it doesn't know it's just on a screen, and that mimicking what's on the screen might be not a good thing. So when this movie was released in Burnaby, BC, Canada, car theft went up 70% in the first 4 days. Wow. And the dispatcher started to also have a little discussion between the small areas and saying, yeah, look at the car theft is really going up. And someone said, do you have that stupid movie rolling somewhere in your town at a cinema? And if you want to see just how powerful this involuntary, unconscious mimicking, copying, and mirroring and emulating part of your neurology is, you can go to YouTube and look up Dr. Jerry Croth. So it's Jerry. Croth is Kroth, and look up his name in the word propaganda. And he's a psychological, a professor of psychology at Santa Clara University in California. And he will tell you that that's part of the propaganda process, is that the propaganda expert knows that if they can control the repetitive content of the environment, although you could not kill someone without them defending themselves from the attack in real life, you could control the environmental cueing to the point where you could trick the person to kill themselves. And that's what we're engaged in right now, is what's called the fifth generation warfare model. Dr. Malone, I think you had him as a past guest, probably mentioned fifth generation warfare, which is the admission by the misleaders who rule us, the admission by them that the average Joe, regardless of intelligence level, would most likely understand they're under attack if a tank rolled down the road, there's infantry at the park, and there's cruise missiles flying overhead. The average Joe would understand, I have to do something. And that conventional warfare model is not really endorsed by our misleaders, because they've done it. It's obvious. There can be legal repercussions because you can see the hands that are pulling the levers. And when you invade a space or country or area where you want to do the invasion, you're usually looking to steal wealth, and the conventional warfare model destroys the wealth of the country you're invading. So the fifth generation warfare is exactly what I talked about, is to control the repetitive messaging, to hijack this unconscious, involuntary reflex to the repetitive messaging, to literally, and I mean this literally and figuratively, that the trick the average person to euthanize or soft kill suicide themselves. And although it might take a longer duration, all the wealth assets of the area you want to invade are intact, and there can be no legal charges laid. No one can go to jail. There can be no Nuremberg 2.0 because there are no legal statutes on the books where you can charge someone criminally for tricking you to kill yourself. So as a self-sabotage coach, I teach people that they have two options. You can control the repetitive messaging yourself and hack yourself into a better life, or you will be forced to allow these architects of doom to control the repetitive messaging, and they will hotwire your brain in the direction and route that they want you to walk within. And as a self-sabotage coach, if we circle back to that lady who wants to lose 50 pounds and gets afraid at 10 pounds, it's because the repetitive imaging and messaging inside her environment, her TV, her movies, her print media, her schooling, her government announcements, were that you're safer, because it is a safety system, you're safer sick, you're safer overweight, you're safer broke. So when she starts up-regulating, the subconscious says, this isn't safe. According to the repetitive messaging I've taken in from your environment, and I have this list of what the most repetitive messaging is that you should be bonding with and mimicking, it is not safe for you. There is no bigger herd in the area you're trying to move up toward. The bigger herd is overweight, medicated, mediocre, enslaved, obedient, drugged, and disempowered. So please step back down before your tall poppy is cut right off at the head. And that's why I stopped training people, because no matter what you say to a person, diet-wise, exercise-wise, you will never, ever override their 40, 50, 30 years of repetitive content that the people who rule us has purposely organized in their media so that they feel safer, broken, instead of safer and being better. I hope that makes a good explanation of why what I do.
Great explanation, and it brought to mind, now years ago, probably 30 plus years ago, I was listening to some Tony Robbins tapes, Unleash the Lion Within, and it led me to think of something about my own growing up, and I'd like you to speak to it, because now in this, what I call the COVID era, a lot of people's eyes are opening up and they're seeing these elements of control that are more overt than they have ever been. But you're contending they've always been there.
Absolutely.
And the one I got back to as a 56-year-old guy is I grew up with the Flintstones. And that was, every kid knew the Flintstones. And it was part of our regular TV viewing. You saw it, at this repetitive nature, this drilling it in. And a common element of almost every episode of the Flintstones was Fred was a working class schmo. He worked in the
gravel pit.
And he always had aspirations towards being wealthy, being rich, being famous, being all these things. And every episode, borrowing kind of from the Honeymooners, all his schemes fell flat. And what happened was he was always more miserable. There were episodes where he did achieve a degree of wealth, fame, notoriety, but he wasn't happy. He was happier back in his simple little cave dwelling with Wilma and Pebbles and Dina. And I hadn't thought of it in those terms, but it came back to me hearing you describe this programming, and that's just one show, and that's just my generation.
You're absolutely right, Gordon. And the way the subconscious mind works, it is so fast at downloading content, which reflects its obsession with protecting you. Like, again, it's the greatest love story ever told. The conscious mind is the mind we're talking with right now. You're listening with the conscious mind. I'm talking with the conscious mind, and it's been shown it can handle around, depending on what research you go into, about 140 bits of information per second. The subconscious can handle 11 million and what per second, 11 million bits of info per second. That means when you're watching these shows, it's not missing anything, not missing the brooch on Wilma's dress, not missing what Betty picks up at the grocery store. It misses nothing. It writes down everything, and it doesn't know when Flintstones end and you go into the real world too, and then maybe you sit back down at the cinema that later that night. It just sees it as one big opportunity to record the jungle you live in. And it doesn't matter if you do the King of Queens with the overweight, beautiful wife, babbling sort of a buffoonish male. You could do The Simpsons with Homer, his son Bart, and they all have bellies. They're all sort of out of shape and not very smart. In The Simpsons, Maggie, the daughter, very intelligent, valedictorian. Marge is the logical one who sort of keeps her peace, doesn't speak out too much. And you could even go to The Family Guy with Peter Griffin, same sort of male character, overweight, not very smart. His son, I forget the son's name, but he's less intelligent than Peter Griffin. The dog, Brian, is an alcoholic. So again, negative male behavior. And then the son, Stewie, in The Family Guy, he's sort of a sociopath, and he's always trying to murder his own mother, which gives dangerous repetitive programming all on its own. People think these are entertainment-based initiatives, and that they believe that the Hollywood machine is there to compete for your dollar. Who can give you the most entertainment value? The truth of the matter is that this was always made and dreamt of as a documented military weapon to control the repetitive content of the viewer or of the places where this group wanted to invade, so that they could control the behavior. And that's why America and Canada and sort of every G20 nation is in this massive morality and ethics crisis, because the repetitive messaging is that these things aren't important. And what is most important is fun, giggling, laughing, and disconnecting from reality with these chemical substances that cause us to engage in this soft kill suicide over time. And there is a lot of people that are awakening, but they don't understand the full facet of it. A lot of people have sidestepped, say, the new medicine that was encouraged in 2021, and they're like, I sidestepped the medicine. But then the people organizing this are like, that's great. We don't care. The people, they don't care if you sidestep the medicine, as long as you drink the wine, watch the TV, order takeout on a Friday night, not fit for a maggot to consume, wear your underarm deodorant with the aluminum in it, use your Teflon pans with the Teflon in it, drink your plastic bottled water with all the xenoestrogens in it, take your Advil because you got a ripping headache because your body's trying to tell you you're on the wrong path. They don't care about the pseudo-awakened folks, because the pseudo-awakened folks will protest the new medicine, because it's so obvious that it's, you know, the coup de grace, or the final, it's the grand finale of this group. But the pseudo-awakened people will just go destroy themselves with everything else that the ruling group riddles throughout the slave camp. And this is what the average person has to understand, is that they want their power back, and they want to really fight the system. I got one phrase for you: you cannot fight the system if the system is inside you. That means you're the system. And it's a system of disempowerment. And they use fifth generation warfare so that you disempower yourself and call it freedom. You poison yourself and call it freedom, free choice. And if you're poisoning yourself, you're using your freedom wrong. And I tell people, that's the system. It's a very old system. It's based in Egyptian black magic, and it's about power, an invisible force that can be seen influencing physical reality. And when you're disempowered, weak, unethical, immoral, no self-confidence, no self-esteem, those are all different facets of the power diamond. And if you dull those facets, because you're poisoning yourself all the time, saying yes when you should be saying no, not organizing your day, not being powerful, there's an invisible, what they call etheric, which means electrical, transfer of power and charge to the misleader. That's why they say these people are in charge. They have the power. These are all electrical terms, because it's literally electricity we're talking about. And they're draining the electricity from the collective to leave them disempowered on sort of a partial level. But this group is not satisfied with partial power. They want all your power. And if they take all your power and you don't have any electricity to run your own metabolism or life, it means you die. And this is actually what we're seeing, is the death blow to siphon all electricity out of the victims and transfer all the wealth, all the power, all the electricity, and all the value to the ruling group. And again, this is all based on ancient black magic.
You used a couple of terms there. You talk about it sounds, I don't know if you use this turn of phrase, but the enemy within. And we're and I'm thinking of Homer's Iliad, the Trojan horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, and big, wonderful horse led it in behind our defenses. And the other term that comes to mind, Jordan Peterson's been using it a fair bit lately, fifth column. And this has been enlightening, hearing you describe these elements, because I think a lot of people are aware of it, as you say, at a certain level, but speaking as one who has not had television in his house since 2011, so I'm 10 plus years with no cable, no satellite. How important do you think it is to, and it was about 5 years ago that the radio in my van broke, and I didn't bother to fix it. So I have no radio even. But how far do you think you have to go in terms of inoculating yourself, protecting yourself from these almost invisible forces that are inundating your subconscious?
Well, you used to have time, but you don't have time anymore. So it was the past 20 or 30 years for people to gradually release these things that enslave them, that control the repetitive content of their environment and drown their subconscious mind pathway in a tsunami of negative imagery. They've had 3 decades or 4 decades to start letting go of things that literally on an etheric level, suck them dry of their energy. At this point, they don't have the luxury of that time. They're going to have to rip these things off like a Band-Aid, right off, right away, one crack, if they want to. And before, getting rid of these modalities of mind control would give you a better life over time. Right now, if you don't deal with these methods and modalities of mind control, you will lose your life. You will die, and your kids will die, and your community will be washed into the annals of history, never to be heard of again. And this is what the average person can't fathom, is that what's really happening, because the way the system operates is there's a surrogate system, which is a simulation of real life, and then there's real life. And the simulation, or the simulacra, is all based on giving fake security to people that want to act, talk, and think like children till the day they pass away. So the average person has a hard time letting go of that, because it would be the equivalent of letting go of their surrogate mother or their surrogate father. And the simulacra, the simulation of reality that the government and the media put on for us, it gives us all these fake feel-good emotions, even as we're committing soft kill suicide, even as the ruling groups are taking us out and, you know, picking people off. And I mean, I know 30 to 40 people who've passed away in my hometown prematurely. So, and the average person who's never grown up, because they've always lived in the simulacra, they've never grown up, which means they've never made their proper rite of passage from a child to an adult. And the big characteristic difference between a child and an adult is a child can't handle pain. They think pain is a goblin. Now, an adult, a real adult like myself, knows that pain is a guardian. Pain has messages. Pain will give you the keys that you need to solve all your problems. If you're brave enough to invite the pain teacher past the threshold, sit the pain teacher down and say, I've been avoiding you long enough. What are your messages? What are your cues? What are your instructions? I'm going to go make a pot of tea. We're going to have a chat. Pain is a guardian. Inside the simulacra, they will always tell you that pain is a goblin, because that makes sure you have the circular reality where you never mature to a fully functional adult. In the basic foundations of all psychological textbooks, you need pain to mature, or what they call maturation or individuation, where you individuate, which means you separate from the mother, from the father, from the group, to have your own ideas. And so let's take a teacher, for example, in public school, teaching kids lies. Most things teachers teach children in all the Prussian-based government school systems around the world are lies. Your body proper will not put up with that. Your subconscious knows that that is not something you were sent here to do. So then the body starts to generate pain to let you know you're on the wrong path. Mental pain, back pain, headaches, knee pain, ankle pain. These are all sort of hints from the body, quiet whispers from the body. It's the pain teacher trying to get your attention. And in the simulacra, in the simulation, the fake reality, they're telling that teacher that her mental depression or his mental depression, the pain is a goblin. Now, if you just go to the guy in the white butcher coat, same white butcher coat as the butcher down at the local grocery store, ask him for chemicals that dull the pain, because pain's a goblin. It's a malfunction. Nothing's working right. It's not your shitty existence. It's the fact that you're short of chemicals that dull the pain. And then that person is recycled back into the childhood turned back in a circle over and over again, where nothing they do makes them feel happy or satisfied or fulfilled, yet they avoid the pain teacher that will help them out of the cycle by sedating all the time with caffeine, alcohol, Tylenol, TV watching, scrolling, anything to stop the pain, anything to stop the maturation process, anything to stop the individuation process. This person is caught in a cycle that is based on the foundations of the simulacra, is that they teach the people that life's supposed to be about fun, and that if anything interferes with your fun, you have to destroy it, especially pain, because pain is bad, it's a malfunction. And this is what we're facing today, is a competition between two facets of society. The adult-based society that want to live independently and become fully functional and empowered adults who lead the tribe in a progressive and evolutionary way, and adults that act, talk, and think like children that want to hang on to childhood fantasies that are causing them pain, but they've never matured enough to deal with it. Those people in the simulacra, the adults that act, talk, and think like children, they still believe in fantasies like the government's their friend, or the taxation is there for the roads, or the guy in the white butcher coat handing out poison is a health professional, even though you've never met anybody who's healthy under her or his tutelage or from the medications. The fantasy in the simulacra is there to trick the subconscious mind into a fake feeling of safety, that you're bonding with the bigger herd. But if the bigger herd is soft kill, suicide, death centric based, you're going to mimic and emulate and mirror that bigger tribe. It's a safety trap. There is no safety there. So we have more people on the planet today than we've ever had in our lives or in the history of the planet that act, talk, and think like children. And they're the ones constantly asking for the surrogates of security to protect them, the government, the media. Tell me lies, tell me sweet little lies, get me back into the illusion. I'm feeling scared. Someone come hug me, give me a safe space.
I'm an 80s boy. You just tell me lies. I forget the name.
Tell me sweet little lies, right?
Yeah.
This is Fleetwood Mac. And this is the battle we have today. We have these people who they're not brave enough to face reality. And it's only because the simulacra is actually a satanic system. It's a dark, ugly, rotting, and evil system from the past that provides this fake security to anybody who wants to just have fun for a couple more days. The average person in the simulacra, they're already sort of dying already, but they would rather take one more hit off the societal crack pipe than grow up. That's what they would rather do. They're children. We're dealing, anybody that believes, anybody that's sort of taken the shot, and everybody in the world knew it was a scam. Everybody instinctively knew this was the biggest scam that they've ever seen. But if you don't have any practice being an adult, you only have one choice, is to scurry back to the simulacra and live as an infant.
I don't know if you've seen it, but there's a comedian who's got to either be a Kiwi or an Australian who talked about the fact that, oh, I like to think that if the government told me to do something I didn't want to do, I thought I was one of those guys who would say no, but instead, well, they said you had to have it to go to a pub, and I said, put it in me.
Yeah, put it in me. Child, a complete child.
Yeah, he said, I thought but at least he's honest. Most people are not. His comedic routine is based on honesty. He said, I thought I like to think I was a person with principles, and I had principles, but they were temporary.
Yeah, and if you circle back to the psychology there, where you have a grown man, I've seen the clip you're talking about. He said, yeah, put it in me. I've seen that clip. But then again, there's the psychology. The repetitive content that man was exposed to is the same repetitive content I was exposed to. Adam Sandler, Will Ferrell, Everybody's a Goof, the movie Elf, the movie Grown Ups, every sort of movie that was glorified on purpose. These things don't grow naturally. Nothing here is growing naturally. You can't. Stupid ideas don't grow naturally. This is part of the magic show, is you need a lot of energy to grow stupid ideas to the point where they're popular. It's very expensive. So, I mean, this is why they're stealing your money, because it's very expensive to grow a plant in the dark when you can just put the plant out on the patio in the sunlight. They're trying to grow plants in the dark. That's very, very expensive. What do you think it really cost trying to turn the entire world gay? Now, I have nothing against the gay community. I've been featured on gay community podcasts for my work on AIDS, HIV, and the monkeypox shot. So I'm not anti-gay, but the question still remains, what do you think the price tag is to turn the world gay with psychological manipulation that's based on repetitive content? It's very expensive. And that's why they're trying to basically steal all your wealth. This phrase, you're going to own nothing and be happy. That's because for them to do all this, to basically convince people there's an emergency, where's this going, guys? YouTube or what?
Yeah. Well, it's going to be on Rumble and
okay,
Spotify
so you can't
too.
put it on YouTube or you're going to get kicked off, because I got a
We
hard
put
time.
Malone's and we haven't got kicked off yet.
All right, you can try.
I've got a question. I
Yeah.
got to talk to you about. I got to ask you about one thing here. Now, I'm hearing echoes, the things you're saying, especially when you talk about pain, and that pain is the great liberator. I'm paraphrasing, but anyway, there are echoes of what Jordan Peterson says in so many of his lectures and talks and such. And yet, everyone knows, if I was to walk down downtown Toronto, downtown New York, downtown Wilmington, and I ask 100 people, who is Jordan Peterson? I'm probably going to get 50 or more who will say, oh, I know of him. They'll have a positive or negative opinion, but he is widely known. If I go down the streets of those same cities and ask them, who is Jason Christoff? I imagine I'll get one, maybe one or two.
Right, one or two.
And well, this is the thing. I'm programmed. We talk about Daily Wire. We talk about Angel Studios, which is big on everyone's mind now.
Not mine.
No,
Pardon?
not at all. I'm with you.
I've never talked about it once. Go ahead, Gordon.
Yeah, well, you see so many in the, what I'll call the self-described freedom fighters are all over products and productions of Angel Studios. They're all over the things that Jordan Peterson says. And I'll admittedly, I'm somewhat in this camp, at least in terms of Peterson, because I like a lot of the content he puts out. But at the same time, I question, why is it Jordan Peterson? Why is, why his voice has been amplified?
Exactly.
And I want your thoughts on that, because I've described my own voice as a fart in a hurricane.
Right.
And so you're also something of a fart in a hurricane. You just happen to be louder than me.
Yes, I'm a little bit of a louder fart in a hurricane. But yes, this
I'm
is going
sorry
to out
for
of
the
one of
lousy
the
metaphor, but
I'm going to go with the best quote of all time. I'm going to be a big smile about that one. But you're right, and that's why I didn't talk about what was the name of this movie?
Sound of Freedom.
Sound of Freedom.
Not even worth,
Because I'll watch it eventually, but you can see it was to divide.
Mhm.
because it's all people are talking about. Now, the point to be taken home here is not what side of the fence you're on with this movie. It's the fact if the movie wasn't on your Facebook page, you would never talk about it. So whatever's on your, you're
Yeah.
getting programmed. And if it's on your Facebook feed, the algorithm has put it there.
Mhm.
And that algorithm is not AI, but it's written by a bunch of really people that are behavior modification experts. They're going to give you the best things they can give you so that you waste your time going down X, Y, and Z rabbit hole. So you got to be very careful when you go to Instagram or Facebook. You got to know that what comes up on your feed is there to take you down, waste your time, and take your focus off yourself, your business, your goals, things that you got to do yourself to better your life. Gardening. I know truthers that research all day, no gold or silver, no garden. They're not looking for property, don't know how to dig a well. And they want that person would be a lot easier to bowl over in the upcoming agendas because they're defenseless. So the more time you spend on the screen and not moving your own goals ahead, I'm not saying don't spend time on the screen, but are you accomplishing your own goals? Like, was it your goal more than 3 weeks ago to fight about the sound of freedom? They gave you your goal for that 3-week period. They're going to give you your goal for the next 3-week period. And then your goals fade off to nothingness. So they're using your attention. And that's why they call it pay attention. Pay. What are you paying when you pay attention? You're paying your focus. And the word focus is very close to hocus pocus. This is all what's called energy magic, or what's called fixing of the gaze. There's actually an electrical draw out of your eyes wherever you're looking, and you will empower through your gaze the object you're looking at or talking about. You're throwing your energy toward it. So it's either you're throwing your energy to someone else's goals or you're throwing it to your own goals. And the average person is so easily distracted. And that's what these landing pages are for. They'll get you going to the MSN or homepage. They'll figure what you're looking at, and then they give you more of the UFC, or they give you more of the hockey, or more of the sports, or the big contracts that you like to Google, or whatever. They'll just give you more stuff so that you never get a firm footing to make a good life for yourself. And this is what they're doing. They're draining everybody's energy. It might be a good movie, and it might be run by a bunch of pedos. I mean, Angel Studios could be a pedo studio. You know what? I don't care. I got my stuff to do. And look, my track record for writing about abused children is 20 years old. If anybody's like, oh, you don't care about the kids, I care. But I've saved more kids than probably anybody listening to this podcast, from medical mistreatment, from kidnapping, from various other things like the vitamin K or baby monitors. I've written about it all. I only do this for the children. But the fact is, I know the group we're dealing with. They have 2 modalities of control, and only 2: poison, that disempower you, and then mind control. And a person that's poisoned is 10 times easier to mind control, because mind control can be hacked in any human just because of our basic neurology. But if you're too weak to resist, if you're too weak to counteract the bullshit repetitive narrative, if you're just too weak if you don't have self-esteem, if you don't have self-confidence, and they're masters of removing all these facets of your power, you're easier to mind control. So again, poisons to make it easier to mind control, and the mind control itself. Those are the only two. They're the only 2 weapons this group has, so that you volunteer to euthanize and destroy your own communities. And the reason they need to psychologically manipulate you to destroy yourself is because they don't have the power to do it by force. Do you not see the answer? They don't have the power to do it by force. Say that again. They don't have the power to do it by force, which means if you don't euthanize yourself, your own kids, if you don't shut your own businesses and commit suicide economically, commit suicide physically, commit suicide morally, commit suicide ethically, if you don't do it yourself, they don't have the power to march out and force you to do it. So all you got to do is stop doing it, and everything will change.
Yeah. As someone, I want to chime in. As someone who, I don't know if you knew this about me, Jason, I used to work on TV shows left and right. I lived in LA for 10 years. You know, I wanted to become an actor like right after high school. You know, my dad's like, you want to go to LA, and, you know, trying to say, you know, don't do it, don't do it. And I think that was part of the reason, but I was just a fly on the wall. But I would go into all these stupid shows with fake scenarios. One of them was a Michael Bay show called The Last Ship, where all of human, you know, existence is wiped out by this global pandemic. And the solution, CDC, a shot, just all kinds of nonsense going on. You know, blood rituals where Malcolm McDowell's pouring blood over, and this is a CBS show. This is primetime TV. So I get exactly what you're saying. And
the repetitive messages, Mark, were like all the cueing, all the scripting, and don't forget, even the word prescription means before you read your script. So you got to be poisoned before you're a good script reader. And all the repetitive content of all these movies, there was like 300 or 400 viral zombie vaccine saves the day movies over only the last 15 years, when the, you know, this no-demic rolled out in 2020. Of course, Contagion was on Netflix. There was something else by Bill Gates called Plandemic, or, you know, Pandemic.
There was one virus here, filmed here in Wilmington.
How could you not have one of these films happening somewhere near you when there was 400 of these films released in the last 15 years? And they are so if you know psychology, they're so well made. Like, say, I Am Legend with Will Smith, another virus vaccine zombie, you know, virus vaccine saves the day zombie movie. But there's nuances inside these movies that the average person doesn't even understand because they don't study psychology. So the amount of fear that you can drive into an audience viewer, the more apt they are to follow and be compliant with the solutions. Now, in this psychological assessment of what scares humans the most is death, death of family members, death of children, and being alone. So in I Am Legend, the virus wiped out all of New York, so you have Will Smith being alone. That's the #1 fear of all humans. It's not death, it's being alone. And that's why in prison, the ultimate punishment is going into isolation. They would be like, let me stay out here with the murderers and rapists. You know, I don't want to go by myself. And in the movie, not only was Will Smith alone, his wife died in front of him. His daughter died in front of him, and then the zombie bit the dog, or the zombie dogs bit the dog. The dog dies, so he's extra alone, and he's lost everybody he's loved. And that will register in the viewer as, I never want to be in a situation like this, because, and if something comes up, I need to do what the movie said, like get the shot. That's going to be the thing that saves me. And New York City, why do you think they roll all these movies out in New York City or in LA? Because they need this sort of centerpieces. It's a Masonic ritual, actually. They call the two pillars on each end of each country called Jacob and Boaz, or Jachin and Boaz. We won't get into that. But they need New York as the epicenter. They brainwash everybody in New York with, you know, Escape from New York, I Am Legend. All these movies are in and around the bigger city centers. So everybody there is wearing a diaper. They're shitting their pants all the time on a subconscious level. And then when they come out with the propaganda of a fake virus revolving in New York City, and they up-ramp the deaths with the ventilator and the remdesivir and the midazolam, all this stuff, they up-ramped it to get sort of the deaths sort of skyrocketing in New York. And then all these things, all these movies that were downloaded by the subconscious mind pathway, they're triggered. It's called dormant program, and triggering the dormant program. They're thinking, the subconscious says, if you don't be safe here, you're going to lose your daughter, you're going to lose your wife, you're going to lose your spouse, you're going to lose your dog, and you're going to be alone in this big city. So those would be the most compliant people. And they needed that epicenter sort of on fire with the energy that's going to drive the rest of the country to follow. These people are psychological manipulation experts. And that's why there's things called the Nudge Unit or Impact Canada, or what's called the behavioral integrity. I'm not too sure, but they all have these acronyms, these names, and they're all based on behavior modification. This had nothing to do with the science other than the science of psychological manipulation. The science, the only science that's settled is the science of psychological manipulation.
Yeah, I had a couple things I wanted to bring up. One is just a comment on what you said, and one is a question. The comment relating to what you said, I was in the military in March of 2020, and I worked, my unit was 24/7, 365, communication center, ComCen. And we had a large TV, monstrous TV, that was hooked up to Bell Satellite, and during daytime working business hours, Monday to Friday, say 8 to 4, we were only allowed to show news programming and such. But when we were working a midnight shift, we could put on whatever we wanted and hook it up to the computer. And the day that SARS-CoV-2, whatever, was declared a public health emergency of international concern, and it was just starting to, it had been background noise, and now they were pushing it. The ship supervisor threw on outbreak, contagion, and just did an evening of movies centered around exactly what you were talking about.
Absolutely, to mind control the whole place and basically give the people their marching orders of what role they're going to play on the chessboard. They're going to be the military guys in I Am Legend, or they're going to be the military guys in Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman. I mean, I know you're in my age category.
Yeah.
So I
never saw I Am Legend. I'm not a fan of Will Smith, but
yeah, it was, well, you don't have to. It was the same thing, is that there's something in the air. You know, it's not your visible tequila. And this is why they have this theory, and it is a theory, of disease causation through viral attack. It's because the truth, they never tell the truth. The deceit. Lucifer is the great deceiver, the great trickster.
Amen.
So what we have here is a lie that holds the truth, and it's inside the simulacra. Like, you know, when you want to set up shop in the simulation, you're going to live out a whole bunch of lies. And one of the lies is, it's not my tequila, it's not my wine, it's not that I don't work out, it's not my Cocoa Puffs, it's not my takeout,
it's not my coffee.
It's not my coffee, it's not any of the poisons that I use my face as a battering ram and a garbage compactor, but that has nothing to do with my health. But this son of a bitch virus, right? I was coming back from Jamaica after a week of drinking and eating things that maggots wouldn't eat. And then I got sniffles on the plane because that kid up there had the sniffles, and it transferred to me. Yeah. It's them, it's not me.
No.
If there's any childhood attitude in the world that's carried by all children, it's that. It's not me, it's them. I'm perfect.
My fault. It was by accident.
No, it wasn't my fault. And so again, you can see that simulation, people really like it because the tequila makes them have fun. The ice cream makes them have fun. Watching the movies makes them have fun. So you can see that the truth would interfere with their fun. Like, I can't use my mouth as a battery, as a garbage compactor. No, you're bad. That's painful. That's hate speech. I need a safe space. And so, yeah, you get your safe space. You know, you infantilized slave. You're going to get your safe space inside the simulacra. You can take your one last hit off the societal crack pipe before you're fed crickets and before they take you down with another shot that's based on pure liarrhea. And you're so weakened by dedicating to the life of an infant that you have no power to be an adult and say, I'm not believing you anymore. You're a liar. You're the great deceiver.
Well, now on to my question. And the question is this. In your own personal, Jason Christoff, what area do you find you have the biggest challenge and the biggest, like if you're looking at looking in the mirror, and what aspect do you, in your own personal experience, do you say this is the area I have to work on most?
I would say sort of bonding or trusting humans in a logical way. Because most of our problems happen in areas where we're either too fast to do something or too afraid to do it.
Yeah.
So with me, because of my childhood background, and everybody's being raised on this planet, I call it planet mental asylum. So we all have our trauma-based impacts, and I have mine where I'm not very trusting of human beings, but then when I trust them too much.
Right.
So for me, it's all about a gauged approach, a balanced approach in my problem areas. So regardless of where someone has a problem, they usually have an imbalanced approach to either do it too much or they're sort of afraid to do it whatsoever. So I have the same issues. So in the area, I have lots of areas I don't have issues, but in the areas that I do have issues, I try to always ask myself the question, are you extending yourself too far in this one particular area? Or are you actually afraid to go into it, which is also hurting your development?
Awesome.
Well, one thing I wanted to
Go ahead,
add, and because we've been going for about an hour, we don't want to keep you much longer, but another situation, these fake TV shows that I was working on, it was so funny because I was in one that was NCIS LA, and we were hostages in Culver City in LA, and it was an ISIS situation. So I rewatched it about a year ago, and guess what it was all about?
Viruses.
But at the end, it was all about saving this vaccine vial. I'm like, I had no clue that it went that far. ISIS and see what woke me up, and I'm glad that I woke up. And I wasn't even political myself, but 2016, it was all the same narrative. I was on set of Training Day with Bill Paxton, the TV show, and everyone was depressed, somber. We're all having a really hard time because of the election and all this nonsense. And then one show after another, and I wasn't even doing this full time. I had another job, but it was tearing down statutes, tearing down. And I'm like, wait, and that's all that they'd book you for. And I'm like, this is nonsense. This is all propaganda. I'm out, so.
And the average person would only remember the one show. If they watch one show of that, they see a statue being torn down, but their subconscious never forgets anything they see. And the people who rule us know that. So all you need to do, and it's been proven, you only need 2 repetitions of the same behavior to change someone's behavior. Only 2. And they're like, how many things of alcohol consumption do you see? And in Canada now, I mean, there's marijuana coast to coast. And if you smoke marijuana, it's shown that it makes you easier to psychologically manipulate. And the average person who's smoking the marijuana up in Canada says, yeah, we won. We finally won. We bent the arm of the bastard government behind their back. We let them know who's boss. We can get our dope all the time now. This is amazing. And they can't see it. It's all about this soft kill, suicide over a longer period, this like 5-star first-class ride into the abyss, always revolving around sedation, numbing yourself in the simulacra, turning the pain teacher off, where a real adult will take all their sedative substances away and just let real life punch them right in the face, because it at least gives you the proper information for you to make a decision. And the decision you make from reality will always, if it's logical and rational, will always have an upside. There is no upside with anything that makes you numb. You will always make illogical and irrational decisions unless you bring your full neurological faculty with you. And the simulacra is, don't worry about how shitty your life gets. Big brother government will always take care of you. That's part of the simulation, is that you'll have this surrogate father, a surrogate mother, a surrogate carer, a surrogate parent that will always straighten everything out for you. But have you not noticed? It's a trap. They're not straightening out anything. They're actually trying to get rid of all the dead wood now, because they've sucked all their energy dry, and the average person is just some homeless guy living in a tent city taking fentanyl. That guy can give no more energy to the simulacra. He's got to go. He's taking energy from the simulacra. He goes to the hospital, he takes energy, goes to the food kitchen, he takes energy. He's an energy taker now. He doesn't maintain the simulation whatsoever. He's a burden on it. Now they want to kill him.
This has been amazing. You know, every time you talk, I don't know if you can hear it, but the wheels start grinding. Just hearing.
That's my forte.
Pardon?
That's my specialty.
Okay, your forte. No, you just made me think of White Noise, that movie that was put out by Netflix about what exactly we saw in East Palestine, Ohio, with that train derailment and everything. And we can go down that rabbit hole. But if there's a group out there, if there are individuals out there who want to connect with Jason Christoff, maybe have you come and speak at an event, or provide lifestyle coaching, teach people not to self-sabotage, etc. How do people engage with you?
Well, I think the best thing to do is email support@freedomfromselfsabotage.com. You'll get on my email list. I have a very unique program coming out in September, which is called The Power in You, which will show you and demonstrate to you not only overcoming self-sabotage psychology and unpack all of this, it will show you how to build your power on every single level imaginable, so you can finally give your no instead of giving your yes. And you'll have a force field around you. It'll take some hits, but they won't penetrate at this time. And you can stand against the pressure and still feel like a safe and secure human being.
Well, speaking as one who went through, now I'm Scottish, so I never bought it, but I had given to me the tape series of Anthony Robbins. I probably broke a copyright law along the road there somewhere, but it's been 20 odd plus years, 30-ish years. So hopefully the statute of limitations has worn out on that. But I will be signing up, and I would recommend anyone watching this podcast to give it a look. Based on everything I've seen, and certainly everything I've heard in the last hour plus, this is the same wisdom I heard coming from Tony Robbins, with a difference. Tony Robbins was foisted on me, and I found some gaps in it. I'm not finding the gaps, we all have them, but I'm going to recommend to anyone, check that out. What was the website again?
You can email my assistant to get on the email list, because I do have something called the Christoff Report I put out 4 times per week that goes over a lot of the psychological manipulations going on. Again, it's support@freedomfromselfsabotage.com. And this way you can be on all my private email list so that you can get the updates on my new programs. I've done 10 programs over, say, 7 years. This new one is going to be the creme a la creme. It's the least expensive. You can pay monthly. It's the most easy to fold into your lifestyle. I'm doing it sort of as a last shot to try and move the world an inch in the right direction.
Well, and is there any other ways that people can engage with you, or is that the best one?
That's the best one. You can see me censored on Facebook. You can see me censored on Instagram and any other social media site where they only want to censorship. It's about controlling the repetitive messaging. That's it. So they don't want my repetitive messaging. They want theirs. And that's why they're so dangerous, because the human is designed to react to their environment.
Yeah.
Well,
Well,
go ahead, Mark.
thanks so much, Jason. This was a thrill. You know, you're doing such great work for this world.
I hope so. I hope we can turn. I think I do see some chinks in the armor of the cabal. I do see they're having trouble, and I do think they're running into a lot more resistance than they anticipated. So everybody out there, keep up the good work. Just keep pushing and keep the repetitive messaging going.
Yeah.